The alert involves a drug challenge on social media involving the drug diphenhydramine. That's the active ingredient in Benadryl and some sleep aids. America's Poison Control reports in the first 5 months of this year, poison centers received more than 6,000 calls involving diphenhydramine among teens ages 13 to 19. That's more than double the number reported during the same period last year. The Benadryl challenge is not new. It just resurfaces from time to time, and our phones start ringing.
Mike McCormick from Florida's Poison Control Centers joins us now. This challenge is serious, yes?
Oh, very serious. And unfortunately, it's not the first time that we have seen it. But, when we want to talk about serious, we have at least 4 children dead across the country at this point, and that number may be low.
So I didn't play the whole PSA that you have posted on social media. I'm hoping that we can play it here on WOKV. But tell us what the challenge entails.
So the challenge, it recirculates on TikTok, sometimes on Instagram, and it encourages children to take a significant amount of diphenhydramine, which is the active ingredient in Benadryl and some sleep aids, to hallucinate or to get high. The problem is you never want to use medication beyond the recommended daily dosing, and we are seeing the tragic outcomes of it. And again, that number that you just heard in there, that's just teenagers. Just teenagers. And they may not all be the challenge, but the challenge is pushing those numbers up, and we're seeing it here in Florida too.
And if nothing else, the challenge is letting people know that this is an effect of taking too much. And I hate to say that, but sometimes awareness creates more problem as well.
Absolutely. And by the way, this isn't the only social media challenge that we chase. We see a number of them that come out through the years. I spend a lot of time doing education with teens, trying to explain to them that anytime you're ingesting something, that just needs to be a hard no on a social media challenge. If you have a social media challenge like the Call Me Maybe dance, that cup thing from Pitch Perfect that all the kids like to do, that's fine for your children to do. But it's really important to have conversations about phone use. You guys were talking about parenting in the segment before. And I think every parent thinks it's more difficult to parent today than it was the generation before. But I think that may be true. And my parents didn't have to deal with cell phones and the things that teens can do on cell phones. And by the way, I thank God for that every day, that I did not record all the dumb things I did when I was a teenager. The problem is the dumb things today seem to be getting more and more dangerous. And again, some of these are cyclical. In 2 months, we're going to see a challenge called the One Chip Challenge that comes out every single year. You've got a company that makes a $22 potato chip that's made from 2 of the hottest peppers that they can find. They reformulate it every year. It does say on the packaging it's only supposed to be 18 and up, but invariably it ends up getting into the schools. And we can run into a whole host of problems just because of the peppers that are involved in that. Some on the minor side. To a couple of years ago, a student up in Massachusetts did die from it. And again, that's kind of an outlier, but it just gets to the heart of it, that these challenges roll around, and we really need to be having tough conversations with our teens, because they act so impulsively. You're a parent, you know it. And it's really getting them to understand, hold on, pause and think about it. Just because your friend did it somewhere or you saw somebody doing it, you don't have to race to post the same thing.
It's so cool to be the person who eats the really hot chip that almost burns your tongue off and get 300,000 followers in the process.
Well, and that's the problem. And, that you have people chasing the likes, the comments, the shares. But, you can see it in our call data. In 2025, the number of calls that we took were 683 with 693 patients.
This is in Florida.
In Florida, just in Florida, and that's for 10 to 19-year-olds. I pulled a little bit different range for this, 10 to 19-year-olds. So total patients was 693 10 to 19-year-olds. So we're almost talking almost 2 a day there. This year, so we're not even fully 6 months into the year. This year, we're at 534 patients. So you can see, and again, that's just 10 to 19-year-olds. And again, not all of those will be from the challenge, but the challenge is what's helping fuel these numbers. But it also goes into another thing that we talk about a lot when I come by and chat with you guys, which is locking up all medication. And when you think about some of the allergy medicines, when you think about some of the sleep aids, a lot of times people don't consider them the same way they would heart medication or opioids. We need all medication and all supplements. I want the gummy melatonins locked up because we get too many calls for little kids with those. Diet medicines. If you take it and it all looks like medicine, we want it locked up so that we can make sure it's being administered correctly.
I was talking with a parent the other day because she had said something like, I just give my baby a melatonin and she goes right to sleep. And I was trying not to be judgmental, but I was like, oh my gosh, that is so not the right thing to do. I said, is your pediatrician cool with that? It's just melatonin.
Well, and we would hope that before you take any supplement that you do connect with a medical professional because, again, another story for another day. But the number of interactions we're seeing between supplements and regular medicine, people don't think about it. I was doing a presentation for seniors the other day, and I do a whole section where I just go through and show medication and the supplements that some lead to severe effects. And some, it just diminishes the ability of the medicine to do what it's supposed to be doing. So we would hope with every medication, every supplement, every vitamin that you're making sure you are talking about those with your medical team. And,
almost every doctor, when you go to visit them, they'll say, review your list of medications. Is this up to date? And I think people think, I don't really need to pay too much attention to that. But that's important.
Oh, it's very important. And I think a lot of people don't think about certain things like it's medication. And so the list really needs to be bigger than just review your medication. It needs to be medication, supplements, diet aids. We need all of that as people are sitting there so that your medical team can make sure that what you are using is safe and is not going to cause any sort of interaction.
Mike, I think a lot of people look and they say, well, if they're selling it at my favorite drugstore, then it's monitored by the FDA and it's safe.
Well, and that's wrong on a couple of different accounts. Number one, the FDA does not monitor supplements.
At all.
At all. So not. I mean,
unless there's a problem.
Well, look in Florida this week. We just got another emergency order on 7-OH, which was being sold. And actually, I just did a TV appearance before coming over here with a woman who lost her son to a 7-OH overdose.
Can you explain what 7-OH is?
7-OH is a substance that is made from the kratom plant. Using mitragine, which is kind of the opioid-like ingredient inside there that attaches to the mu receptor. But she went into a store in this area in the last week and bought it, even though we're still under the old emergency order that says it can't be sold. So we're seeing an explosion in what we call gas station products that are ending up on store shelves. And you're right. People think because it's there, it should be safe. And then also because it's sold, over the counter, easily accessible, I don't think people think the same safety when you take it home. So, that's everything from THC drinks that might look like juice drinks that your kids do to look like alcohol products. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. There's a lot of stuff out there, as I said. I think parenting is, and in my case now, grandparenting, is getting to be a little bit more difficult.
Our guest is Mike McCormick. He is with Florida's Poison Control Senators. We've just elevated you.
I was going to say, wow, thank you. Thank you.
Florida's Poison Control Centers. So kratom, let's talk about that for just a quick second. It is an herb, right? Mm-hmm. You see literally neon signs that you can see from the road that places are selling kratom. I think a lot of people look at that and go, well, if it were bad, then somebody would be shutting that down and you wouldn't be able to see the LED sign that in very large letters says kratom available.
Well, I think in this country right now that we look at it, a lot of people are looking for different ways to
escape,
to be healthy, to escape. I think people have become skeptical of medicine. And so I think people do look to a lot of alternative substances. Kratom is a plant. It comes from Southeast Asia, has been used in that area of the world for many years. People chewed on the leaves. It does have a medicinal-like effect for what it can do. But what we're seeing with kratom is it's an exploding multi-billion-dollar industry that has multiple different products at multiple different levels of danger. Overall, though, I am going to come back to, it is still hitting that mu receptor, which is the same thing that opioids are hitting. So there is a risk that we see with these products of especially extreme withdrawal when you stop using them. And that can be very painful. But then, when you get up into 7-OH and other stuff, we run into seizures, cardiac problems. And then sadly, in some cases, there can be fatal outcomes.
So just because it is sold at a store that is advertising that it's selling it very boldly, or just because I can find it in the supermarket, does not mean that it's safe.
Oh, absolutely not. And if you have questions, by the way, the Poison Helpline, 1-800-222-1222, is not just for emergencies. We have a database. We track more than 500,000 substances. We add substances to that database every day. And we're more than happy to answer questions. So you can just dial 1-800-222-1222, and you'll be talking to a specialist in poison information who should hopefully be able to, get the information that you need to help you make a good decision. And then most importantly, we really want to stress, again, there is no judgment. Adults that are using things, please, please, please make sure that we are keeping them locked up and away so that young children can't get to them.
One of the other really important things I think to get across is, and you can tell me if you think this is right, you were talking about kratom and the withdrawal and 7-OH and withdrawal and other drugs, even melatonin having withdrawal symptoms. And I have said this before and gotten a lot of heat for that, but almost anything can be addictive.
Sure, and anything can almost be a poison. So, a lot of times what we talk about in the poison world is it's not the poison, it's the dose. And so I think it does become the same thing as you do, look towards addictive qualities. And let's be honest, you can get addicted to exercise. Well, caffeine, is another one. And people do feel caffeine withdrawal if you ever decide to, to back off how much caffeine you're intaking a day. As journalists, we've lived on that stuff for years to be able to do overnight shifts and work 7, 10, 12 days in a row. But so, yes, anything can be. So it is very important that, and it is important today because there are so many products and we are moving so fast and we make things so convenient that we are taking a moment to stop and educate ourselves on the things we're putting inside our body.
And Mike, we're making things more fun, right? So as the profit margins increase for, private companies to embark on these things, whether it's embracing the herb of the day or the herb of the week, or even something like caffeine. I mean, we all know a very large coffee chain that makes really fun drinks and makes a whole big thing about a secret menu. And people might say, oh, well, that's harmless. They're just trying to sell coffee. But there are preteens who are addicted to certain drinks from that company and have to have them every day. And it's either because of the caffeine or the sugar or whatever else is in there, because it's fun and seemingly harmless.
Well, and there's a lot to unpack in what you said there. I think one of the first things we see is that we make things fun and taste good. So again, that makes them attractive. It makes us want them more. It also makes them really attractive to small children. So that's one of the things that we have to look at there. As these companies get bigger, they have influence to help work with the legislative process to keep certain things on the market, which is something that, obviously as voters, we all need to pay attention to make sure that we are working to still give people choice where choice makes sense, but definitely protecting those, especially the smallest children that are out there among our community.
You are a well-recognized member of this community. You have been a member of media here and also now find yourself in the position of, advocate for safety. If there was one thing that you could change from a PR perspective from the side of corporations who are selling things like this, what would it be?
Wow, that's an excellent question. Just one
We
thing.
only ask excellent questions on In Depth.
So I guess the one thing that I would really push to change is that we don't make products that are made for adults look like and taste like things that children want. And again, so we don't go out and advocate on whether people can or can't do stuff, especially as adults. We're here to help with poisonings in the case that somebody takes too much. But really, there is no reason for a kid's orange juice to be sold that looks the same way that now has vodka in it. I do a display when I'm out in the community, and some of you may have seen me. I'm at events almost every day now. And I have a display where I just put products that parents walk up to and look at and say, hold on, that has alcohol in it? That has THC in it? I put out a series of Rice Krispie bars and say, tell me which one is safe for your kids to eat. And they can't pick it out. I have a juice pouch that I put out. Every 3-year-old that walks by grabs it off their table. Their parents are horrified that they grabbed it. And I'm like, don't be embarrassed that they grabbed it. Here's what I want you to see. This is spiked. There is no marketing consistency to even the way that some of this stuff is put out there. So it could say hard, it could say spiked, it could say malt, it could say seltzer. Everybody's not up on all the lingo. And then especially in a multicultural state like we have, where you have English as second language, think of how difficult that is. And then when we get down to the youngest children who are going to the refrigerator, we all want our children to be, independent and teach them to be grown up. They're not going to know what those words mean. So yeah, I guess if I could change one thing, it would be stop making adult products that look like things kids do. There's got to be better ways to do this.
But didn't we fight that argument with tobacco years ago? Like, why are we still fighting it? It seems we've been fighting the same thing for decades.
Well, and if you look at it, some would argue the vape industry is following what tobacco did many years ago. So, I mean, it's all about business. And ultimately, at the end of the day, what I want to do is I think we need to put it back on all of us in our houses, in our families, that we are taking a beat. We're taking a moment to make sure that we're locking up, we're putting up and away, and that we're definitely spending time to read the labels and understand what things are. Because, that's one of the other things that's a problem with this. I work with pharmacists every day. I work with doctors. I work with physician's assistants and nurses. They have kind of their own language and they know all this stuff. And a lot of times I'm just looking at them going, excuse me, what are we talking about here? Again, they talk about diphenhydramine. I talk about Benadryl. It is a totally different language. So a lot of us, when we're out there with a lot of these products, we just don't know. So it needs to be put back on us that we are taking the time. Look, we all carry phones. It's really easy to sit down and start doing some research. Make sure you're checking more than one source. But to really sit down and understand so that you can keep your family safe.
And the co-founder of Juul, one of the makers of the e-cigarettes, said in 2019 in congressional testimony that he never wanted minors to use the product, but obviously being taken to task because of the fact that, I don't know what the percentages of teens who use vaping products or the percentage of overall vaping products that are used by teens in general. But it's still super high.
Well, it's a $22.5 billion a year business. And sadly, where we're seeing the growth in the vaping industry, believe it or not, is middle school. And it's something that every middle school I go into right now, they talk about. We're seeing schools across Florida. We're seeing them across the country where they're having to put vape sensors in bathrooms. My coverage area goes down to the Space Coast, and one of the high schools down there shut down some bathrooms because they didn't have enough teachers to be able to monitor the bathrooms. It's a flavored liquid. There seems to be less of a stigma to vaping than cigarettes, so it is an overall issue that, again, we have products ending up in the wrong hands, and
in some cases more dangerous than cigarette use.
So, I always like to say that because a lot of people think it's less dangerous.
Right.
And what I'll always say is it's just different dangerous. And that's what we really need to sit down, because you start thinking about, you're taking something directly into your lungs. And again, many of the vapes that are sold in stores today, I think people will be surprised. Even the FDA says they don't have enough inspectors. I've seen estimates as high as 85% of the vapes that end up in stores come in illegally into the country. So again, even when you're calling poison control, sometimes we may not have whatever that is in our system. We're working very hard to continue to update. But so what are you putting into to your lungs? Something to think about.
Mike McCormick, Florida's Poison Control Centers. Not Senators. Thanks so much for being here.
No, thank you.